I'm going to read The Prince and the Pauper. This is chapter 15. This is a 8-page story, so quite long. Here you go. Tom and King. The next day, the foreign ambassadors came with their gorgeous train, and Tom, thrown in an awful state, to receive them. The splendor of the scene delighted his eye and fired his imaginations at first, but the audience was long and dreary, and so were most of the restless for what began as a pleasure grew into weariness and homesickness by and by. Tom uttered the words which he Hartford, filling his mouth from time to time, tried hard to acquit himself satisfactorily, but he was too new to such a thing and too ill at ease to accomplish more than a tolerable success. He looked sufficiently like a king, but he was ill able to feel like one. He was cordially glad, and when the ceremony was ended, the larger part of this day was wasted, as he termed it, and in his own mind in labors pertaining to his royal feast. Even the 2 hours devoted to certain princely pastimes and the questions were rather a burden to him than otherwise. They were so fettered by restriction and ceremonious observance that, however, he had his private hours with this whipping boy, to which he is counted clear gain, and since he got both the entertainment and the needful information out of it. The third day of Tom County's kingship came, and went much as the others had done, but there was the lifting of his cloud in one way. He felt less uncomfortable than at first. He was getting a little used to his circumstances. Surroundings, his train, streets, gallop, but at all time he found that the presence, homage of the great afflicted, and embraced him less and less sharply with every hour that drifted over his head, and then but for one single thread. He could have seen the first days approach without serious distress. The dining in public rest to begin that day, and there were a great matter in the program so on that day he would have to preside at a council which would take his views and comments concerning the forest to be pursued toward various foreign nations scattered far nearest of the great globe. On that day, too, Hartford would be formally chosen to the grand office of Lord Protector. Other things of note were appointed for that first day, also about to Tom. They were all insignificant compared with the others dining all by himself, with a multitude of curious eyes fixed upon him, and a multitude of mouths whispering comments upon his performance and upon his mistake, if he should be so unlucky as to make any. Still, nothing could stop that first day, and so it came. It found the first time Lord Speed and an absent-minded, and this mood is continued. He could not shake it off. The ordinary duties of the morning dragged upon his hand and worried him, and once more he felt a sense of captivity heavy upon him. Right in the front, he was in the audience chamber, conversing with the Earl of Hartford, and duly awaiting the striking of the hour for the visit of ceremonies from considerable numbers of the great officers and the courtiers. After a little while, Tom, who had wandered to a window and become interested in the life and the movement of the great highways beyond the palace gate, and not either interested but longing to with all his heart take part in prison, in stir and freedom saw the band of the hooting and the shouting murder of the disorderly men, women, and children of the lowest and the poorest degrees approaching from up the road. I knew what is about, she exclaimed, and with all our boys' curiosity in such happenings. There are the king, so many responded, and with your deliverance, have I yours graciously tracked? Readily, yes, exclaimed Tom excitedly, urging to himself to with his liberty. Sense of satisfaction and truth in being a king is not all dreams, it has this compensation and convenience. and the Earl's court page and sent him towards the captain of the guard with the order. Let the Mufti altered and inquired matters concerning the occasion of his movement by the king's command. A few seconds later, a long rank of the royal guard cased in flashing streets and filed out at the gates and formed across the highway in front of the multitude. A messenger returned report that the crowds were following a men, a woman, and a young girls and to execution for crimes committed against the peace, the dignity of the realm. Death and violent death for these poor unfortunates, the thought wrung Tom's heart strings, and the spirit of compassion took control of him, to the exclusion of all other considerations. He never thought of the offended person, or of the greed or wrath in which these three criminals had inflicted upon their victim. He could think of nothing but the scaffold and grisly fate over the heads of the condemned. His concern made him even forget, and for a moment, that he was but the first shadow of king. Not substance and vigorous ingenuity, he had blurted out the comment, "Bring them here." Then he blushed scarlet. A sort of apology sprang to his lips, but observing that his order had wronged no sort of surprise in earth, and the waiting page, he suppressed the words he was about to utter. The page, in the most manner of course ways, made a profound obeisance, and I tried backwards out of the room to deliver the comment, and experienced a glow of pride and the renewed sense of the compensating adventure of the kingly office. He said to himself, "Truly, it's like what I was to feel when I read the old priest's tales and did imagine mine own self for a prince, giving law and commentors and saying to this, to that, whilst none durst offers let or hindrance to my will." Now the doors swung open. One high-sounding title after another was announced. The personage of the owing then followed, and the place was quickly half filled with its noble folk and finest. But Tom was hardly conscious of the presence of these people. So wrought up then was he, and so intensely absorbed in that other more interesting matter. He seated himself absently in his chair of state and turned his eyes upon the doors with the manifestation of the impatient patenting which the company forbore to trouble him, and felt tracking a mixture of public business, court gossip, one with another. For a little while, the majority creditor, military man, was heard approaching, and the culprits incurred the prisons in charge of the sheriff and escorted by a detail of the king's guard. The civil officer knelt before Tom, then stood aside. The three Don knelt also, and remained so, the guard took position behind Tom's chair. Tom scanned the prisoners curiously. Something about the dress or appearance of the man had stirred a vague memory in it. "Methinks I have seen this man announced about. Now when asked the welfare me," such words Tom thought. Just then the man glanced quickly up and quickly dropped his face again, not being able to endure the awful fall of the sovereignties. But the one who glimpsed of the face with Tom, God was sufficient. He said to himself, "Now is the matter clear. This is the strangers that flocked gears with out of the Thames and saved his life. That wind beaters the first day of the new year's brave good deed and pity is a half been doing. They just once and then gone himself in this sad case. I have no proof of the day and neither the hour, by legend that an hour after upon the stroke of 11, I did get a hiding by the hand of Gammer's County, which was wove so goodly and admired the ceremony, and all that went before followed after it. Well, vast footings and characterized by comparison. Tom now ordered that the women and the girls be removed from the prisons for a little time, then addressed himself to the sheriff, saying, "Good sir, what is the man's offense?" The officer knelt and answered, "So please your majesty, hath taken the life of the subject by poison." Tom's compassion for the prisoner and admiration of him as during the rescue of a drowning boy, and experienced the most damaging shock. The scene was thrown upon him he asked. Most curious. Tom signed and said, take him away, since he has to earn his death. This is a pity, for he was a brave partner, means he had to look for it. The prisoner clasped his hands together with sudden energy and wrung them despairing, at the same time feeling imploring to the king in broken and terrified phrases. "Oh my lord, the king, oh those 10 feet lost, have pity upon me. I'm innocent neither house and whereas I'm charged to be more than my lameness proved, yet I speak not of that, and judgment is gone forth against me, and the manner suffer alteration. Yet in my extremity I beg a boon, for my doings is more than I can bear. The grace to my lord kings, in the lawyer's confession grant my prayers to give commandment that I be hanged. Tom was amazed. This was not the outcomes he had looked for. Oaths my life of strange wounds. Was it not the fate intended? Oh, good my reason, so. It's ordered that I be buried alive. The highly surprise of these words almost made Tom spring from his chair as soon as he could recover his wits and cried out, "Have the wish for souls, others had poison 100 men, those insurance not suffer so miserable death, and prisoners about his face down and burst into passionate expression of gratitude, ending with, if ever thou shouldn't know the misfortunes which God forfend, may the goodness to me this day be remembered and quite repeated." Tom turned to the Earl of Hertford and said, "My lord, is this the believer, the word warrant for this man's fellowship stone? It is the lowest your graceful poisonous in Germany coiners to be boiled to death in always not cast in of a sudden, but by a rope to let down into that oil, and by degrees and slowly spread the feet, and the legs dance. Oh, foolish no more, my lord, I cannot bear it," cried Tom, covering his eyes with his hands. "Shut out the pictures, I beseech your good lordship. The order be taken to change this law of let no more fool creatures to be visited with these tortures." Our face showed profound gratification, for he was a man of the merciful, generous, impulse, seeing not very common with his class in that first age, he said. "These yours, grace, brother, when you have seen these tombs, history to remember it to the honor of yours loyal house." Then the tribe was about to remove his prisoners. Tom gave him a sign to wait. Then he said, "Good sir, I will look into this matter further. The man has said this deed was but lameness proved. Tell me what you do and knowledge." If the king's grace please, it did appear that from the crier and this man's entered into a house in the hamlet of the Instron, and the words only lay strict 3 witnesses say it was at 10 of the clock in the morning, and to say it was some minutes later, the sick man being alone at the time, and the sleeping, and presently the man came first again and went his way. The sick man died within the hours being torn with a spasm and leching. Did any see the poison given? Was poison found? I know my liege. Others to one noticed there was poison given at all. Please your majesty, the doctor testified that no one died with such symptom but by poison. With even this in the sample age, Tom recognized the formidable natures that the doctor knows and his trailed life. They were right. The matters tossed in ill looked for this poor man, yet was this words. Your Majesty, there is no worse, and men testify that which, since gone, from the villages, none of the widows did hotel, and speak privately in their ears that the sick man would die by poison and murdered, and that a stranger would give it, stranger with bronze to Harrison crawled in a warm and common garb. Surely these prisoners, those answers to Undri, to the village, and please your majesty to give the circumstance that sound and which is the due thing, but was foretold. This was argument of tremendous force in that subject Tuesday. While the thing was settled, if evidence was anything, this poor fellow's guilt was proved. Still, he offered Prisoners changed saying, if those can say or in the behalf to speak. No, the word avails, my king. I'm innocent. You cannot make it appear I have no friend, as much I show, and that I was not in Islington that day, so might I show at the hour they names there. I was over legal age things. I was wiping old stairs and yet more. My king's before I could show, and the twice they say I was taking lives. I was saving it. A drawing boy. Peace, child. Name the days and the deed was done. At 10 in the morning. Some minutes later, it's the first day of the new year. Most illustrious. Let the prisoners go free is the king's will. Another priest followed this leader's approach. He carries the indications as well as the good biting. He remarks me and the man should be hanged upon such idols to bear the brain evidence. A verge of admiration swept through the assemblage. It was not admiration of the decree that had been delivered by Tom, but for free it is the expenditure of the foreign convicts the prisoner, or the things which is few there stood have participated in either submitting of mind was the admiration was the more intelligence than speed, which times had displayed some of the Lord's boisterous remarks were to this fact that this is no matter king. He also listed with sound. How say it put his question how like his former natural self was this of imperious the deposers of the matter. God be thanked. This is the informative spent. This is no waking, and the brother kings the host born himself, like to his own father. The air, being filled with the applause, Tom's ear, naturally caught a little of it. The fact with this hat upon him was to put him greatly at his ease, and that also charged the system with very gratifying and sensations. However, his juvenile curiosity soon rose superior to these present thought and feeling. He was eager to know what sort of dead listening mischief and the woman and the little girls could have been about. So, by his command, the two terrified solving creatures was brought before him. What is it that these have done? He inquired out of the church. Please your majesty, of black crimes is charged upon them. Clearly proven to, wherefore the judges have decreed according to the law, and they be hanged. Issued themselves to devils such in their crime. Tom Sherwood had been called our horse people to who did this wicked thing. Still he was not going to deny himself the pleasures of feeding, as curious for that. So he asked, where is it done? When? Oh, midnight in December, in a ruined church, your majesty. Tom Sherwood again, who was there present. Only these two to your grace and that other. Have these confessed? Nay, no, sir. Sir, they do deny it. Then, which? How is none? Suddenly witness the sea, then, wending thither, and good to your majesty, this bred the suspicion, and our effects have such since the confirmed justified, in particular. It is evident that through the wicked spoils obtained, they involved to bring about the strong and wasted all religion around about the 40 witnesses that have proved the sums, and should one might have had 1,000, for all had religions to remember it, since it our and suffer by it. Senators, this is a serious matter. Don't turn this like piece of the scoundrel and in his mind as wild and asked, suffered the woman also by the strong. There were held among the assembly this knowledge. There's the recognition of division of these questions. The sheriff, however, saw nothing consequential in the inquiries that he answered with simple directness. Indeed, it is see, and then your majesty and most righteous as all over. Reversed habitations was swept away, and the husband and the child left shelters. Methinks proud is to herself so ill accounts. With duly at boat, she had been cheated, and she paid about 40 at the point that she paid his household, and her child accused, and she is mad. If she is mad, she knows not what she does. Therefore, she is not. The list has noticed the convention of Tom's wisdom, On summer's day, one individual murmured, and the king be mad himself, according to report. Then his own mad instead of sword, and then would improve the senator of the sun and hour of, and if by the gentle providence of God they could but catch it. What age hath the child? Asked Tom. 9 years, please your majesty. And a law of England, male child, enter into his covenant and satisfied my lord, asked Tom, turning to the lone judge. The law does not permit a child to make a modest in its weight matters, good my liege, and holding that its colors the wit and unpieces, which cope with the lifer, wit, and the evil skimmings of them, or its elders, and the devil may buy a child. If we so choose, the child agrees better, but not an Englishman. In this latter's case, the contract will be null and void. It seems a rude and Christian thing, and will contrive is that English laws need the privilege of the Englishman to waste them on the devil, cried Tom, with his honest heat. This novel view of the matters excited many smiles, and was stored away in many hearts to be repeated about the code as evidence of Tom's originality as well as progress toward mental health. The elder culprit had ceased from sobbing and was hanging upon Tom's words with an excited interest and growing hope. Thomas stated this and strongly inclined his sympathy toward her in her perilous and unfriended situation. Presently asked, how will they do bring the storm? By fullness of their stockings, sir. This answer is Tom, and also fired this curious fever heat, he started eagerly. It's wonderful. Hath it always this dread effect? A waste knowledge, at least, if a woman desired an earth needful word, and it in her mind with her tongue. Tom turned to the woman and decided with impetuous zeal, "You're the powers of their strong." There were sudden pearlings of cheeks in the superstitious assemblage, and a general, though the unexpressed desire to get out of the place, all of which was lodged upon Tom, who was dead to everything but the proposed catechism. Seeing a further and strange look in the woman's face, he added excitedly, "That we those and shall be blameless, or those and shall go free, none so shall touch thee, except the powers. Oh, my lord the king, I have it not. I have been falsely accused. If you stay here and be of the good heart, and those short and separation of harms, make a storms, it matters not how small or one, the courage not the greatest harmful, but indeed preferred the offer to this, and this life to spare, though shall I go out free. Or the child is wearing the king's patterns, and says from heart of the demolished from any ignorance, the woman prostrated herself, protested with tears, and that she had no flower due to the miracles that she would gladly win her child's life again, alone, and be content to lose her own if by the obedience to the king's command. The precious grace might be accused. Tom urged the woman still adhere to her declarations, finally said, "I think the woman hath said true, and my mother was in her place, and gifted with devils functions. He had not stayed a moment to roll the stones, let a horse land in ruins. With saving of my forfeit right, what the price she got is argument that other mothers made likes more, and those art free, and a good wife, those and the child, for I think the innocent." Now noticed the fears that being the forest full of the stockings and can't make near storms in the salt village. The redeemed creatures was loud in her gratitude and proceeded to obey, whilst Tom looked on with the eager expectancy, a little marred and by apprehension. The culturist at the same time manifesting decided discomfort and uneasiness. The woman stripped her own feet and her little girls also, and the granny did her best to reward and the king's generosity with own earthquakes, but it was all a failure and disappointment to Tom's side, and said, "There, good souls, trouble is out. No further, and the power is departed out of this. Go the ways in peace, and if it return to thee and any other times, forgive me now, the part of me is strong." Done. Wow, it's quite a long story for this chapter 15. Tom's king. Tom is a good king who considers young and poor and maybe innocent prisoner